So this video is called Why My Tastes Are GNU, and I'm going to be talking about some specific shows from my anime top 10, but this may interest you even if you're not someone who's particularly interested in anime, because, well, you may have guessed from the term GNU, I'm going to be talking about how my tastes can be described as just fitting into the GNU philosophy. Now, if you don't know what the GNU philosophy is, it's a philosophy of designing things for computers, programs for computers, I guess. And that is basically the idea that everything should be able to communicate with everything else, but every individual program should do one thing well. So, for example, let's say you're making a program that needs to know the date or needs to tell the time. Well, someone's already programmed something that can tell the time. Why? So it would be a waste of time to program your own one. Rather, you should just be able to ask the program that already knows how to tell the time what the time is and get the information that way. Or let's say, that sort of thing. So that way your program only has to do one thing very well, and then you can focus on doing that one thing very well, and that means your programs are less bloated, they run faster, and take up less space. And generally, if you don't have to waste development time figuring out things that have already been figured out, it's going to do that one thing that it's trying to do better than it would do if you were spread across trying to recreate stuff that other people have done. And also, you're going to end up, uh, you know, everything works like that. So then the other programs you call to for their uses are going to have their uses be done even better. So everything works smoothly. In general, this is my in my brain, this is to me this is the best way for computer architecture to be run. No architecture, you know what I'm saying. Uh, and so why are my tastes GNU? Because I like my shows to do one thing well. I like so I'm going to be taking some examples rather than so let's say you do. And there is actually an example that counters this, but we'll just ignore that. So let's say you've got uh, a show that does, and not just I don't just want them to do well. I want them to go all in on just doing this, on just hitting a specific thing. So I have uh, Aria and Hidamari Sketch because they do characters very well. They do character. They don't really they do character and the sort of this calming atmosphere, the sort of Iyashike slice of life stuff. They just hit those notes and they don't, because they're focused on character and calm and healing. They don't bother with long storylines. Arya, actually I would say neither of them bother with story at all. There are like minor plots, I guess, but they essentially don't have a plot. For all intents and purposes, they don't have a plot, uh, because that's not their job. Their job is to do this one specific thing, to hit the character, to nail characters, and to nail a healing atmosphere. Um, so then, what if I do want a plot? Well, I'm not going to try and go to a show that's trying to nail its healing atmosphere for an in-depth plot. I'm going to go to I don't care about that. I'm trying to get plot. So I go to your Kyohora, your Horizon in the Middle of Nowhere, something along those lines, or Evangelion, both of which are also my favorites. And these shows nail the plot down perfectly. You got Horizon, which does a very specific type of plot, which I like, which is very in-depth world building, very lots of tendrils of people going everywhere, people plans doing. You got your action, you got your loads of characters all interacting with each other, crazy powers and abilities, interesting setting with lots of like in-depth history, political power struggles, everything you want from a good sort of narrative, grand narrative like that. And then if you want your character drama, you go to Evangelion, which does it the best out of any anime, really. I mean, there's competitors, maybe Cowboy Bebop, maybe, I mean, quite possibly fucking what's it called? The other Anno thing, the romance Anno thing, but I've forgotten what it's called. But I haven't finished that, and I probably won't for a little while. Maybe I will soon, actually. Not until I finish 2005. So you've got those. That's for plot. Um, and then let's say I want comedy. Well, these other shows, like, there's comedy in Hidamari. There's comedy in. I mean, there's even comedy in Evangelion. There's comedy in Horizon. Actually, the second season of Horizon is quite funny. But I don't go there for the comedy, and I don't expect them to nail the comedy. This is why Take-U's on my list, because Take-U doesn't care about anything else. It does its one thing, and that one thing is comedy, and it goes all the way in on the comedy. There is no holding back to try and turn this into a drama at the very end, like a lot of shows do. Or there's, it doesn't switch like that. It doesn't try and juggle too many balls. It's like this: I'm a comedy, and I'm gonna fucking nail comedy. Just like Horizon does. I mean, it does a bunch of stuff, but it's like, I am a show that is like this, and I'm going to go all in. I'm not going to try at all to appeal to a non-niche audience, because that's not my job. My job is to do this one type of story very well, and that means going completely in depth and possibly alienating a lot of people, which is what I like about it. So there you go. You've got pretty much all your things you need. Uh, and last up, which this again links to Aria, which has nails atmosphere and characters. Now let's switch over to what if I want something that is more of a philosophical take. Well, I actually used up. I don't consider Evangelion to be a particularly philosophical show. I know a lot of people do, because it talks about some basic philosophical concepts like the Hedgehog's Dilemma and nihilism and stuff. But like, really, those just things you get when you tell any sort of story. I mean, I guess you can count it as a philosophical show, but really, I guess so. But let's say Lane is more about this particular. It's about the atmosphere as well as the message. It's about sort of a unified, the completion of aesthetic as narrative, uh, sort of. Yeah, it's this completion of aesthetic as narrative in order to 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 present a philosophy. And Lane does not care about being a comedy. Lane doesn't care about. I mean, there is some interpersonal drama in Lane, but it doesn't particularly care about that. It cares about presenting some ideas, and creating an atmosphere where those ideas make sense. There's world building in Lane, but it doesn't. The point of Lane is not. No one would argue that the point of Lane is world building. The world building is the minimum amount possible to support the atmosphere and ideas. You learn about this tiny section of the world. You've got like a specific club in Tokyo, a specific house on the suburbs, a specific random school, and there's nothing special about them in particular, other than that's just where the story takes place. Well, there is something special about Club Siberia, but whatever. Uh, so this is what I mean. Each one of the shows I like generally do one thing, and they nail that one specific niche very well. And importantly, they don't pull back. They don't. They, there's no hand holding, which is something that GNU philosophy people don't like. So let's say you compare something like Vim to something like Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word has a lot of random shit you don't that like could be done, like it's not. So like you got word art, or the ability to like all this bloat basically that is just basically bullshit, because if you want a text editor, you want it to be able to just edit text and nothing, like there's no need for all that other stuff. That's the difference, is that Vim, if you are someone who wants to write code, no one is writing code in Microsoft Word, or even some other text editors that aren't made to do their one thing very well, because you can work much faster on something that's built to do one specific thing very well rather than built to do anything kind of okay. So I want to see shows that are built to hit one note perfectly rather than shows that are trying to be broad and hit many notes. Except that Mahoraba made it into my favorites. Why did Mahoraba make it into my favorites? Kind of for unrelated reasons. That kind of disproves everything I've just been saying, because Mahoraba is comedy, drama, slice of life, and it nails all of them. And romance, it nails all of these aspects. So, Mahoraba made it into my favorites, not necessarily because it's the funniest show of all time, not because the drama. Here we go. I'm sorting it out. I'm sorting out so you can see where it fits. So although Mahoraba is funny, when it's trying to be very funny, it is very funny. There's laugh out loud moments in the show, multiple, for me. It's like when it succeeds in that. When it hits the drama, so it succeeds in that, but it's not the funniest show of all time. It's not Take You. When it can do drama and it can do it well, clearly. There's multiple very effective dramatic moments, but this isn't fucking, I don't know, Tokyo Godfathers or whatever. It can do romance, but this isn't whatever romance shit people like. Strawberry Panic, I don't know. It can do all these things, but the only reason those things exist is to service the point of the show, which is the characters. There is a plot, but the plot is, I mean, is there a plot? There's sort of a plot. Not really. It's really actually closer to just a character focus, just a character study on these crazy people, and in that way, it's sort of the missing link between your horizons and your arias, because it's taking the insane characters of, or even maybe a Panny Pony Dash, characters that are very specific, very niche groups. I'm going to talk more about my theories on Panny Pony Dash when I get to it in the 2005 series. But Mahoraba has these very particular characters, very individual characters, and all of them are well rounded and well written. And so the drama around them and the comedy around them and all that stuff, it is actually, as it should be, to service the characters rather than to service some sort of plot. And that's, again, so in reality, it may seem like Mahoraba is stretching itself in all sorts of directions, breaking the GNU philosophy, but in reality, it's doing all of those things because it has to build them up. And this is kind of where we run into the problem of trying to convert this thing that works for computers into working for media, because computers can just borrow those things from other places, but you can't do that with a TV show. You can't just put someone else's TV show in the middle of your show. It doesn't work. And when they do that, it's normally as like a reference. Again, Panny Pony Dash does that a lot. But so that's kind of where you run into the problem. So when you want to develop characters who necessarily need a little bit of this backstory drama or something like that in order to become fully fleshed out, you kind of can't help it but to dive into the drama a little bit. So yeah, Mahoraba kind of breaks the cycle here a little bit of my tastes, but that's the reasons I like Mahoraba are very specific to me. I explained it in my video of it. Like, there's characters that appeal to me for very specific reasons that won't matter to anyone else, really. And to be honest, those characters kind of are the focus of the show, but no, it's hard to say. I'm not even going to bother trying to fit Mahoraba in. I mean, I have been trying, but I think in the end I'm going to come to the conclusion that attempting to fit Mahoraba into this weird idea is just not going to work, and it's going to have to be the exception that proves the rule. Oh yeah, another thing that's on my favourites, Cosette no Shoujo, Le Portrait de la Petite Cosette. Why is that on there? Because it nails aesthetics. That's it. It doesn't necessarily, like, no, who fucking cares about the plot? Who cares about the weird drama, the music? No one cares. It's about the aesthetics of the show. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think I've explained myself properly there. So really, it was a stupid. So in conclusion, this video is a false pattern that barely makes sense because there is a very obvious counterexample right there in my favorites list with Maharaba, and even Evangelion could be said to be a counterexample. So really, this entire thing was flawed from the get go, but it's definitely not wrong. Like there is a part that is definitely something that does drive my tastes, even if it doesn't fully describe my entire taste in all of media ever, which, to be honest, making a singular theory to describe that would be impossible for anyone, I think, unless you have incredibly specific tastes. Uh, since I have very broad tastes, it's kind of impossible. But I think this is a, a pretty close estimate to describing at least a significant portion of why I'm attracted to various things.